Let me ask you a question. Every year, thousands of brilliant scientists graduate from the best universities in the world. They publish papers, they run experiments, they work late nights in the lab. And yet, only a tiny fraction of them actually change their field. Why? Why only some of them have any impact in the field? Is it intelligence? Is it access to funding? Is it luck? Or is there something deeper that separates scientists who just do research from those who create real breakthroughs? Today, I want to talk about something that almost no graduate program teaches: how to think like a scientist who actually innovates. Not someone who just runs experiments, but someone who changes the direction of a field. And I want to share this not from theory but from my own experiences, because at one point in my career, something happened that completely changed how I think about science. And that moment became the foundation for everything that followed in my life. Stay with me because the ideas in this conversation may completely change the way you approach your career in science. So let me talk about the moment that changed my thinking. Earlier in my career, I had the opportunity to contribute to two therapeutics that later received approval from the US FDA. For a young scientist, this was a big moment. You might think the story ends here, but actually, that moment created a deeper question in my mind that started the story, the new chapter of my life. So instead of asking, what did we accomplish? I started asking, how did this happen? How does an idea move from a lab experiment to an FDA approved therapy to something that actually improves people's life? Because if you think about it, that journey is incredibly complex. It involves science, but also regulation, industry, translation, funding, manufacturing, strategy, timing. And suddenly I realized something. Science does not exist in isolation. It exists inside systems. That realization pushed me to do deeper thinking. I pursued a PhD, but I made a decision early on. I would not only think in terms of publication. Publications are important, but they are not the only path to impact. So I began thinking in terms of innovation and also started filing patents of my work. I started thinking about translation, about building companies. Eventually, I became a co-founder of a company right after my PhD. And even then, something inside me kept asking another question. What are the gaps between academia, industry, and entrepreneurship? And more importantly, can those gaps become opportunities? That mindset led me to start building biotechnologies ventures and expanding them globally. Not because I had some perfect roadmap, but because I kept asking questions. And that is the central idea of this entire conversation that I'm having with you right now. The scientists who truly innovate are not simply those who work harder. They are the ones who think differently. So today I want to share the thinking patterns that actually lead to innovation. So principle number 1, start with problems and not tools or instruments. One of the biggest mistakes scientists make is falling in love with tools and instruments. They start thinking about a fancy new sequencing technology, a new microscope, a new computational model. Tools are exciting, but tools rarely create breakthroughs. Important problems create breakthroughs. So the first question every scientist should ask is this: what problem am I actually trying to solve? And not just any problem, a meaningful problem. A problem where the solution would genuinely change how people work. In academia, sometimes we drift into solving problems that are technically interesting but not impactful in the real world sense. But innovations do something different. They ask, if this problem disappears tomorrow, who will benefit from it? Is it patients, industries, society? And when you begin with meaningful problems, your research suddenly gains the right direction. So let me ask you something here. When was the last time you stepped back and asked this important question? Why does my research actually matters? That single question can transform your entire approach to science. And this brings us to another principle. Principle number 2 is question everything. Real scientific thinking begins with questioning. Not rebellion for the sake of rebellion, but curiosity. When you read a paper, instead of asking, is this correct? Instead of assuming everything in the paper is correct, ask, what assumptions are hidden in this manuscript or publication? What would disapprove the hypothesis that the author have made? Many breakthroughs in science started because someone asked the question that others were afraid to ask. Sometimes entire fields operate on assumptions that no one revisits. And innovation often happens when someone simply asks, what if the entire assumption itself is wrong? If you develop this habit, something fascinating happens. Your brain starts noticing gaps in knowledge. And those gaps are exactly where innovation lives. And this brings us to principle number 3. Think across disciplines. Another powerful habit of innovative scientists is intellectual cross-pollination. Most people stay inside their own field. Biologists talking to biologists, engineers talk to engineers, economists talk to economists, but breakthroughs often happen between fields. Think about how computer science transformed biology and how physics transformed medicine. When you learn concepts from different disciplines, you start seeing new connections, and suddenly problems that seemed impossible start looking solvable because someone from another field solved something similar in a completely different context. Think of Darwin. So here is a simple challenge. Every month, learn something completely outside your field. It might feel unrelated, but one day that knowledge might unlock a breakthrough innovation. Innovation is not just about depth. Do not assume that if you'll do 5 years of PhD, you become an innovator. It is about connecting ideas that others never thought to connect. And this brings us to principle number 4, mental experiments. Before running experiments in the lab, run them in your mind. Ask yourself, if I change this variable, what happens? If I combine these ideas, what might emerge? This type of thinking, this type of mental thinking allows scientists to explore possibilities quickly. Your mind becomes a simulation engine, and that dramatically increases the speed of learning. Some of the greatest science insights started as a thought experiment. It is true for every innovation. It started off as a thought experiment. Principle number 5, iterate relentlessly. Innovation is rarely one big moment. It is usually the result of many small iterations, small experiments, small improvements, small failures. But when you collect data from these iterations carefully, patterns begin to emerge. And those patterns guide you towards the next step. The next step is, the key is to fail quickly, learn quickly, and adjust quickly. Now let's talk about principle number 6. Think in systems. Science is rarely about isolation discoveries. It is about systems, biological systems, economic systems, technological systems. When you start thinking systematically, you stop asking small questions. Instead, you start asking, where is the bottleneck? Where is the leverage point? Where can a small change create a huge ripple effect? This is where the transformative innovation happens. And this is my final message to you. My journey from contributing to FDA approved therapeutics to pursuing a PhD, filing patents, co founding companies, building biotechnology ventures globally was never about following a predefined path. It was about learning how to think like a scientist who never stops asking questions. The people who change science are not necessarily the smartest people in the room. I am certainly not the smartest one. But they are ones who stay curious longer, who question deeper, who connect ideas across words. So here is my challenge for you. Find one assumption in your field, just one assumption, and examine it deeply, because the next breakthrough in science will not come from repeating what everyone else is doing. It will come from someone who dares to think differently. And that someone might be you. So if this video made you rethink how you approach science, let me ask you one question. What is the biggest problem in your field that no one is solving right now? Please write that in the comments. And if you want more insights on innovation, science careers, and translating research into real world impact, make sure that you let me know in the comment section. Because the future of science will not be shaped by people who only follow the system. It will be shaped by people who learn how to rethink. And with this, I wish you good luck in your scientific journey and the journey of innovation.